Hello everybody and welcome to this month's Spotlight on interview. I'm Kate Nash and the founder and chief executive of Purple Space. I'm a white woman in my 50s with shoulder length auburn hair, wearing a black and white blouse today and dialing in from Mumbles, which is just west of Swansea in Wales in the UK. Now this month's leadership theme is all about maximising the relationship between the Disability Employee Resource Group on Network and the senior sponsor. And I suppose the purposes of these interviews are really to do just that, to spotlight on incredible members, incredible talent, and to really deep dive into the learning that they can help us to pull out around what it takes to build disability confidence from the inside out. So it's one of our many learning resources and part of our Networkology Foundation Academy of information in our member zone. So today I am thrilled, she said with a pause. I'm talking today to Elaine Carroll, who's the lead for Europe, Middle East and Africa region of Disability Alliance Steering Committee and Programme Manager at Google, as well as David Sneddon, who is Executive Sponsor of the Disability Alliance and Vice President EMEA of Google Tech Professional Services. Hello to you both.
Hi, Kate.
Hello. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Very good honour.
So look, we speak on a Friday afternoon, but we don't know when our members will be listening to this. But yeah, thank you so much for freeing up your time. It's always hard when we get to the end of the week. There's so much to do. So yeah, delighted that you could join us. So very quickly, quick few factoids around Google, and then we're going to get into our conversation. So Google joined Purple Space last year, and an organisation well over 100 offices worldwide, 160,000 employees, and is arguably one of the most well-known brands worldwide. And Google have shown their commitment to the next phase of culture change, where employees with disability, we start to lean in to the process of driving culture change via high impact networks. And we are deeply impressed with the way in which Disability Alliance membership grows and the way in which you're building your narrative within the business. And I believe your membership has something like tripled just in the last year, which is incredibly impressive. So Google participated in Purple Light Up. You set the bar high, really authentic and real conversations where yourself, David, you spoke to, I think it was Matt Britten, who's your president of Google NEA, and you were talking about how networks are such a powerful force for change, and your mission, which is about making information universally accessible for all. I love that phrase that you used, making room for all. Beautiful, really lovely. So let's get into this. I'm going to start with you, if I may, Elaine. Can you tell us a little bit, first of all, about why you got involved in this topic, in the ERG? What is it about you that wanted to put your hat in the ring to this ERG, this Disability Alliance group?
Of course. Well, I actually have multiple invisible disabilities. I was born hard of hearing, about 50% hearing. I'm dyslexic. I suffer from migraines, and a little over a decade ago, I also developed myalgic encephalomyelitis, or more commonly known as chronic fatigue syndrome. So when I started, nearly 8 years ago now, at Google in Switzerland, I looked around and there were ERGs around gender, around LGBTQ+, but there wasn't anything at the time around disability, and that was really the area of my identity that I was struggling with to keep up with people. So I thought, well, why not have one around disability as well? They had a few chapters in the US, so I brought it to Zurich. And since then, it's just become a bit of a passion of mine, because it's something I so strongly identify with. But I'm also aware that I'm very fortunate. I'm high functioning, so I want to use my voice to help those in the company who maybe aren't as high functioning as me and who are, facing even bigger struggles than I was. So we've really just been working on trying to grow that within the Swiss office. And then we can talk a little bit more about it with you in a minute, David, but then growing it regionally as well, and really kind of trying to take the fight, almost seems slightly aggressive, but the fight for recognition and inclusion across the company, you know, to the top.
Wonderful. So we use the expression a lot at Purple Space, the personal is political. So for you, it was very real. It was a very personal story.
It was, yeah, and I'm not the only member of my family who identifies as disabled. I have several friends who, you know, have then since come out to me and disclosed to me about their disabilities, which they were struggling with and didn't feel they had a voice to share that. So I see all the time just how worthwhile it is to do this work.
Lovely. Well, we're going to touch, I'm sure, on some of the topics about, you know, how hard it is sometimes to authentically talk about one's experiences. So we'll come back to that. David, what about you? You know, why are you involved in this? Did someone put a hand up against your back, or was it easy to say yes? Tell us a bit about your interest and excitement in this area.
Well, I'm usually excited, and as time goes on, I think we're making more and more momentum. But if I cast my mind back about 3 years, it was precisely that. It was a little bit of all of the above. I think there was a community that would have benefited from let's say some more executive visibility, and also somebody who was kind of passionate and could maybe help the community in maybe the more senior parts of Google just to have more of a voice. You know, we are a California-based organization. A lot of the thinking comes from California, but I think, as Elaine just said, we were maybe collectively a little frustrated by how quickly it was coming over to our neck of the woods. And so I got involved in 2019, and I quickly realized that there were both a ton of opportunities and also a ton of problems. And, you know, Google, like lots of your other amazing clients, has, you know, like is very careful about our external brand. And actually, we do tremendous amount of pretty cool stuff in this space. Just with Android alone, actually, is very accessible. But we weren't really matching that talk or that external technology with the way we showed up internally. So I'd be very fortunate actually to be able to be part of bridging that gap. And I guess that's what I see what the executive sponsor does. I couldn't do what Elaine does. But I think what I can do is then help Elaine and the community have a voice when decisions are being made about what buildings that we're going to either rent or buy, or whether we're employing contractors around the Europe, Middle East and Africa region that are accessibility aware. Do we have any role models in senior management? We know how important that is in organizations. Look at Microsoft with someone like Jenny Fleury and the reverberative effect that. So I've tried to bring that, or as much as I possibly can. And yeah, I suppose what started as sort of a kind of being part of the European management team, and, you know, discharging my responsibilities well as I could, I have to say, and largely actually meeting people like Elaine and meeting people like UK has become a real passion area for me. I think that we're doing okay. I think we could do a lot better. We're really focusing on it, and excited to be here today to talk about it.
Wonderful. So look, quick one-liner, great intros. What, you know, driving change is never easy. It's never easy. And, you know, for anyone of any seniority or wherever you're placed within an organization, it can often take a lot of verve to agree to be part of a leadership team and drive change. You know, what is it about you as human beings that drives you to be part of a leadership change program? What is it about, Elaine, what is it inside you that wants to be part of that leading change?
I suppose I'm a bit of an assertive personality. I'm very tenacious, and once I get an idea in my head, I tend to be like a dog with a bone with it. And this is an idea that's very, very important to me, and I see the impact of what we're not doing, the impact on human beings that I'm working with, watching them struggle, and then the impact when we do stuff, how much that can help improve Googler experience. So I don't know if there's a specific aspect that I have tonight. It's just me in this one area. I don't think I would have the opportunity or ability to stand on the sidelines and not be involved. You know, David is very, very well aware I'm quite forthright with my opinion on what I think we should do and how we need to do better. So I'm just fortunate in David that I have someone whose enthusiasm matches my own, and isn't railroaded by me.
It's lovely. Wonderful. David, same question for you. What is it about you that needs to be part of this, that accepts that runs with it?
Do you know, at the heart of it, it's not right if a company can't provide a kind of reasonable set of accommodations to whoever they expect to show up in work every day. And I think the closer that you get to some of the issues and challenges that the disabled and the neurodiverse community have faced in the workplace, I think it's nearly impossible to stop caring. And maybe actually the role, and then you try and professionalize it and you try and cause some change. But I think, as you said, as Elaine beautifully articulated there, it has to start from within. And then I think, I think that's half of the role of being in the role that Elaine and I play. If we can convince others that actually that there are opportunities for the organisation to show up as the very best version of itself, I find that extremely motivating. I find that extremely motivating in my job in Google anyway. We're very fortunate to work for a company that sort of believes that technology can do an awful lot of good when correctly deployed. Not that we haven't made our mistakes, of course, but there is generally a sense that we really try and do the right thing, or we try and do the right thing, even if sometimes that's articulated. And I think that should apply in this space as well. Maybe actually one of the few positives, if you like, of the pandemic, I think it's probably given people an opportunity to shape the sort of workplace that they want to go back into, and the sort of and the kind of the equality that they want to be present there for everybody in the community. We are just incredibly fortunate and honoured to represent the disabled and neurodiverse community, which, by the way, is a very substantial community in our organisation, but one that maybe hasn't always had a voice, and particularly in our region. Probably has had more of a voice in the US. We have people like Vince Cerf in our organisation, and of course for anybody who knows the work that he's done, he's been really passionate about this for the best part of 50 years. We don't always have those figureheads here, and I'm not pretending that either of us have the stature of Vince Cerf, but maybe a little bit of the passion and energy that someone like him brings can be really, really helpful, and can provide a voice, and also can maybe start to make some subtle changes as well in the organisation.
Wonderful. Let's come to how you work together as a team. All of our members are forever finding that sweet spot around how the ERG leader, the practical, the doer, works with the senior sponsor or champion. And I suppose, I think one of the things that our members would be keen to hear is how you work together. So Elaine, what expectations did you have of David? How did you notice his skill set and what he wanted to achieve? How did you mine that? What did you agree early on? And how did you match what David wants to do within the Disability Alliance?
So when we were first notified that we were being given an exec sponsor, I was super, super excited, because I had recognised by that point that our ERG was kind of the unpopular one in the group, because disabilities can often make people so uncomfortable they don't wish to discuss them. And we needed that representation to grow. But I have to admit, I probably gave David a lot of sass when he first started as well, because I was also a little bit untrustworthy of him, purely because it's like, well, this is someone who's been told he should do this. He's probably just going to want it for his performance review. Is he going to be leaned in, or is this going to just be a constant uphill battle? So bless him, he was very, very good, very patient with trying to earn the trust and improve his allyship there. I'd say we probably found the sweet spot fairly on. And I think a lot of that comes to the fact that David didn't come in with well, I'm the senior member of Google, like, you have to do everything I recommend, or I think it is the right thing because I've got the experience. Whereas, in terms of hierarchy of job roles, I was much lower down the pole. Instead, what he came in and said, right, I want to be your ally. You are the representation of, the disabled and neurodiverse community. What can I help you with? And that was just so the right approach to take, because it made us realize that he wasn't trying to take over, he was trying to amplify the voices we had. And, you know, he outlined the things he could do to support us. And we were able to say, okay, yeah, that one, we think that one's really good. That one, maybe in 6 months, 12 months down the line, when we have this set up, would be really, really good. And it instantly, like, much more of a collaboration. I think hopefully David agrees. I think it's worked really, really well. Of course, there have come times when we've maybe lightly butted heads of me saying, nice idea, but you know, you're an ally, you don't identify, like, that's not the way we should be looking at this. And I'm sure there's other times David has said I know there's other times David has said to me, like, this is how best to present this to leaders and get them engaged, which is just an area he has the expertise in. So I think we've been able to fairly successfully play off each other's strengths and work on that. And we've gone ahead and we've built the steering committee. So we've gone from 3 of us, 3.5 of us, which I was like, right, you're all being involved now, to growing this, to now having a steering committee with everyone has like specific job roles and everyone contributes. And it's wonderful to see.
Elaine, this is so lovely to hear. I mean, let's go across to David. You took a little swig there. I don't know whether it was alcohol or a chocolate drink.
This is my fancy Christmas mug with my coffee in it. So yes,
wonderful. But David, does that chime for you?
Totally. I mean, look, this is kind of no one's full-time job in the organization, obviously within an employee resource group. So you're trading off a lot of passion in people's spare time. They do their normal job 35 hours a week, and they might have a few hours. That's probably where we were. That's certainly my impression of it. I mean, look, I think, you know, everybody watching this will Elaine jumps off the screen with her passion and energy. You know, one of the outputs of that, we've gone from 6 to 27 chapters. We now have a chapter lead in every single Western European, most Eastern European countries. We now have 4 in Africa. We, for the very first time, in Israel, the Middle East, Russia. And we're starting to really have some serious impact on the organization, from sort of hiring in certain countries where there are quotas and all the, anyway, all the things that all the experts on the call will be. Maybe if I can just add, is just say, I think there may be 2 things that I would sort of say have worked well here. I think the first is, it's probably no coincidence that Elaine works in the engineering side of Google, on Google Calendar, or has worked on it. So strong organizational bias from both of us. Let me try and wrap that up. Is like, we've been pretty hard on governance. So we make sure that we meet, and when we meet, someone takes notes, and then somebody follows up. All that really basic stuff, but actually that you'd associate with the day job. We try to apply some of that to this. So like when because no one has time to be spending endless hours here, we've really tried to focus and try to be effective, like using sort of executive decision-making skills. And then on the other hand, I think we probably had a healthy dose of chaos. We've sort of let the thing run because we've been really excited, and we realized that we were excited. The best way to get other people excited was to be excited, and then they would get caught in our excitement. Probably a little bit of Google's internal culture there too. So maybe a mix of governance and sort of like gentle chaos has actually, and propelled by a lot of energy and excitement, I think has probably been how we've worked together. And we've been, I mean, I'm a huge fan in like my everyday life, is like, you can sort of, you know, I have like, you know, a teenager at home, so of course I have some expertise in this now, but you can sort of really like try and sort of push people into things, or you can maybe attract them with energy and good vibes. And we tried to probably do more of the latter. When you get that going, you sort of build a bandwagon. I mean, look, Kate, you've done this so brilliantly in your organization. We probably borrowed a little bit of that as well, like get people excited and energized, but maybe back it up with great governance. So that's maybe what I just embellish really what Elaine was saying.
Wonderful.
I think Purple Light Up was actually a very good example of that excitement. You know, we did it in EMEA across 6 locations, and this year we're taking it global. You know, I've got Northern American offices want it, I've got APAC offices want it, and we're gonna, you know, and that's just because they got caught up in our excitement. We were like, this is awesome. Look what we're doing. This is amazing. And now everyone's like, yeah, that's awesome. Let's do it.
Wonderful. I love it. Have you heard of the expression that your energy enters a room before you do? And the way you're describing, on the one hand, you need to set in place, I suppose, the discipline, the structures, the hygiene, the governance, all the things you need to do to get things moving and to meet with each other, etc. And at the same time, you need to create that space, that vacuum, to follow your nose sometimes. Not quite sure where all the answers might be, but the necessity to get people engaged and mobilised around a mission. Wonderful. Look, I just want to build on this. I want to probe a little bit more into your own skills and default personalities and the traits that you've drawn on. You know, what sort of traits do you draw on, Elaine, for yourself? I mean, you mentioned it a little bit. You know, you're very thorough, you're very systematic. You know, we hear that in spades. But what are the traits that you deliberately draw on in terms of building your relationship with David?
Oh God, that is probably the hardest question you've thrown at us so far. So prior to being a program manager, I was an administrative business partner. So organization is key. And I think that's why I've been able to be successful in this, because as David mentioned, this is not our full-time role. This is an extra on top of our core role. And that takes a lot of organization to really drive things through in this area, whilst also doing our full-time role. So that's definitely one of my traits that I've utilized for this. Within that role as well, you also have to be a good influencer, get people brought in, because we're not very hierarchical in Google. Rather than giving mandates, we tend to influence and persuade people that this is the right direction. And within the world of tech, that is a lot of what we do. You know, when we're thinking about the products we're building, we have to negotiate on how that product will look to ensure it's accessible, to ensure it's usable. So those influencing skills as well. I also have been working on a background in diversity and inclusion for the last 8 years. So I draw on the things I learned there, the allies I create there, the network I create there as well, not just within the Disability Alliance, but also within our other ERGs, our Black Googler network, our women's network, all these other ones as well, which I can reach out and be like, okay, I saw you did this, like what's your best practices, and drawing that and pulling that information back in, and communicating that to the rest of the team. And I think also just the skill of knowing when to step back. So as David knows, I like to try and do everything and have my fingers in all the pies to ensure it's all running smoothly the way I think it should. So one of my big learning things that I had to do, which David helped me with, is just allowing other people to take on the load, to step up and grow their skills as well in this area. So still slight work in progress, but
No, I don't think we
hopefully that is happening.
It's great. Elaine, you're such a motivator. And you're right, you know, I don't think we ever stop learning in terms of the balance between delegation and doing. I think until our lights go out, we are forever perfecting that art. Beautiful to hear. David, what about you? I mean, what very senior ally, champion, sponsor, you know, what are the types of skills and default personality that you draw on to support Elaine and the growth of Disability Alliance?
I think probably access to senior decision-making fora, I think, is definitely helpful. They are the ones where the budget gets given out. They're the kind of areas in which, you know, priorities are actually chosen. You know, Google's very invested in advancing the amount of women working in technology, the amount of Black plus people coming into the technology space. So we're like, you know, they're very laudable things. They're also, if I can put it nicely, they're things that we're competing with a little bit for attention. So making sure that when we show up, it's with the passion and energy that I described briefly, and obviously a good bit of substance too, and probably helping the group sort of think about that. At the top, you mentioned Matt Britten earlier. He's a senior person, actually the most senior Googler outside of the United States, and you know, he has many decisions to make and many things get put in front of him. So you have to be able to, I suppose, put things in a certain way so that they will be taken seriously. But his commitment's been terrific, and his understanding is growing constantly, as is that of the entire European management team. Maybe the other thing is, Elaine just touched upon it there, is just there's probably a bit of gentle coaxing about where we should be spending our time. You know, I think one of maybe the few downsides of all the passion and energy that we've been trying to bring to life, that can lead to, you know, people, particularly in times of pandemic, spending an awful lot more time at home in the evenings working. And so like maybe sort of having like helping the group set guardrails, all this sounds very boring, doesn't it? It's much more inspiring in real life, but making sure that people are able to do it within their current constraints and making sure that other people can come in and help. And sometimes with the benefit of some experience, you can see when someone's maybe burning the candle at both ends. There's probably kind of a resourcing thing. I think that's kind of helpful as well. Just again, like it's much, you know, with a topic as important as this, actually one of the real tricks is to pull as many allies in as possible. And I probably play a little bit of a sort of subtle influencing role there to just to try and make sure that like folks, we're not trying to do it all, that actually we try and shoulder the load with as many people as possible. I mean, Kate, a bit like the way that you've expanded your network, but you've of your organization, and but also used that to broaden the overall shoulders of the organization too. Like we're all sort of bought into the mission, and Purple Light have been a great example of that. So I think we sort of like, we probably try and do the same thing, and maybe that's where I'm able to help to sort of maybe sort of like, as I said, subtly steer and shape things a bit, which again sounds very much like work, doesn't it? But when you do it with a healthy degree of fun and excitement, then hopefully you can captivate people and then bring them along this journey.
Wonderful, really wonderful, very exciting. David, another question to you, and then I'm going to come back to Elaine to share any tips that you might have, Elaine. You know, all of our members will be constantly thinking about that sweet spot between the within the relationship of a senior sponsor and the role that they do. They don't always get it right. They don't always have a sponsor. So I want to hear some practical tips from you about how to mine that relationship, or indeed to secure a sponsor in the first place. But before I do that, David, you know, we know that executive sponsors can fulfill a variety of roles, and you've just shared some of those. So it can be about opening a door. It can sometimes be a mentor to individuals like Elaine. It can be sometimes being a resource finder, or attracting the interest, the passion of individuals like the incredible Matt. And sometimes it's about being table thumper or giving unpopular or difficult news to other seniors. So in your role, for you and Google, what's the most important role that you feel you're delivering around the build of Disability Alliance?
You've just done a beautiful summary there, so I'll probably pick it, maybe inspirer.
Yeah.
Because I think with that you can put a lot of the other things will then follow, and maybe I'll embellish it because Elaine will talk a lot about inspiration now in a second. One of the things that I found really important to get people energized is actually to try and have as much of an external profile. So not just within Google, but actually Google's doing something outside of Google that reflects obviously back to Google, but also to the wider community. And I've been particularly passionate about that because this is something I think that actually helps to galvanize like internal momentum. And secondly, I think it gives people a kind of a platform. If nothing else, they can post something on LinkedIn rather than on our internal intranet. And I think that gives people a sort of set, maybe sort of in an invisible but very powerful way, it then sort of holds them to a greater and higher standard of accountability because they're kind of involved in a wider community. So yeah, that mix of inspiration, but also externalizing that passion has almost helped us to sort of actually get sort of, in fact, that's probably a technique that we use a lot now. So Purple Light Up being a very visible, one of many, that probably one of the highest profile things, but many other things we're trying to probe are in different countries. We're in Poland, we're starting to get very involved with a bunch of universities. That's where a lot of thought leadership happens there. In Germany, we've been very involved from a recruitment perspective because that's actually a powerful influencing vehicle there, and so on. And I think these are things that I've been, if there's something that I've kind of brought on top of that beautiful list that you gave, that's probably where. And I think some of your other clients have been similar. I think they hit a sweet spot of internal and external influencing. So I've probably tried to copy a little bit of that, quite frankly.
Quite right. I love it. And David, before I move to Elaine, what is the most tangible impact that either you're seeing or looking forward to landing? And you know, all of our members recognise this is often, it is about journeying. It is about supporting different functions within a business to mainstream the topic of disability in a way that is elegant and easy and real and normative. But for you, what would be the most practical and tangible impact that you will look forward to over time?
It's a great question. I'll give you 5 different things, but I'll give you the thing that I think most top of mind is hiring.
Yeah.
I think that you can, I think, was it John Major that said, fine words, butter no parsnips? It's basically, you can't just talk, you have to do stuff. And I think where that shows up is in hiring pipeline, because it's very easy to hire someone, everybody knows this watching, but like the reality that we all talk this, but the reality is hard. Very easy to hire someone like you. It's harder to hire someone who's from maybe a different space. That could be culturally, that could be whatever sort of shade of the rainbow that you're looking at. And I think, we're trying to engage now at the university level, at intern level, graduate level, engineering. We're trying to look at it from an intersectional lens too. And this is something that, I'm like our staffing and hiring teams are really, really focused on. And I think we can't take all the credit there. Of course, there's some amazing people there, but I think we've certainly helped them to think a little bit differently about obligations and responsibilities. And I think that's where it will really show up. We have to build a more diverse workplace. Technology companies are wonderful, but there is tendency to hire from a similar gene pool. And so I'm really excited about the progress that we can make there. And by the way, shameless plug, if anyone's watching and anyone is really passionate about working for Google, then please do get in touch with Elaine or I. We will be excited to hear from you.
Look, all of our members are going to be piling in now. We're going to be accused of doing an advertising recruitment. I jest. Lovely.
And sorry, that was a shameless plug. So all your other clients, I apologize. Well, I sort of apologize. So.
No, I love it, and so will our members. Yeah, it's beautiful. And it is about being able to publicly share your ambitions and your ambition. So love it. Good. Elaine, coming to you, some of the practical stuff, what would you share, particularly of those of our members who may be very early on, who may come from a public sector, and for whatever reason they may come from NHS, which of course are particularly challenged still as we move out of the pandemic, not just in the UK but across the world. But how would you advise an ERG leader who is struggling to either secure a senior executive or to build a good and solid relationship with that senior sponsor?
Yes, it's like 2-part question there. In terms of securing one, I would say use your networks. You might feel like you're isolated, you're not getting anywhere, but speak to your managers, speak to your managers, and don't give up. Don't just say, oh, we need this. Give them the reasons why this would be beneficial, not just to you, but to the company. Because at the end of the day, that's what the senior people, that's going to be the bottom line. How does this work for the company? How does this benefit us? So give them that. Give them examples. In terms of once you've secured one, getting into that sweet spot, I would say probably the main thing, don't be afraid to be honest. I think me and David skirted around each other and went very open and candid with our aspirations, what we wanted, what was working, what wasn't working. I don't think we would be as successful as we were. But I feel empowered, despite maybe the leveling difference, David being a VP, me just being a program manager. Despite that, I feel completely psychologically safe saying to David, that doesn't work for me. This is what I think, with the knowledge that he will listen and adapt. We will both adapt our thinking if either side thinks us wrong. So if you don't feel that you can speak to your exec sponsor like an equal, you're never going to have the best relationship. And you should be able to feel like that, because you are equals. The titles in this space are irrelevant. What we need is leadership on both sides, regardless of what your particular job title might be. I would say it would also be, if you are a passionate ally who wants to get in this space, that is fantastic. But one thing we have here in Google is we have the saying, nothing about us without us. So if you are an ally and you're leading in this space, bring in your community members, make them part of your steering committee, make one of them a co-chair, so that you're not doing this, because that way you actually really reinforce the messaging. and you get access to their stories. And that's one of the most powerful tools we have, is this narrative, this storytelling. That's how we get people to be empathetic to us. We get people to understand where we're coming from. So also make sure you are actually not just being a very enthusiastic ally, but you are involving your community, because they will be your strength. That said, don't put the onus on them, because you also use your voice to help them. But yeah, I think that's a big thing, is never give up, involve your community, create a space of psychological safety, and be completely candid and honest with your exec sponsor on what you need from them, what they're doing that's good, what they're doing that's not, and be prepared to accept that feedback as well. You know, this relationship wouldn't work if I said to David, okay, as our exec sponsor, I need you to do this, this, and this, and this. And then when he said, oh, how about this? I ignored everything he said. That would just not work. You know, it's a two-way exchange. Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we don't. But I think both of us are very comfortable stating that and absorbing that feedback in a constructive way.
Wonderful. Wise words. I love it. I know our members will be writing copious notes. Seriously, you are an incredible duo. You know, we could quite literally chat with you both forever. However, you are busy bunnies and our members are busy bunnies. So I'm going to start to end now and on a high. You've both given a huge insight into your relationship as a pair, of the types of traits that you draw on as individuals and how you play with each other's skills and gifts and insights. It's fantastic. You know, we enjoy the pace that you're setting. Congratulations to you. You set the bar high, and we wish you much luck in your next steps. And we're looking forward to hearing your fantastic success, which is, I think, absolute in terms of what you will do next. So thank you for your time. Thank you, thank you.
Very welcome. It's been an honor.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Members will love it. Expect to be tapped in the member zone. Okay, so I'm sure our members will look you up. So look, thank you everybody for listening. I hope you found that helpful. I found it incredibly inspiring. This is, as we know, a really generous space, and it is generous because of individuals like David and Elaine who feel able to dig deep, roll up sleeves, be honest and candid about how they work together to drive change and build that disability confidence from the inside out. It's about helping people to lean in, and to lean in from different parts of the business, whether that's individuals who are struggling to be who they are in the context of work and share a little bit about their experiences of disability. But it's equally about our allies feeling able to know that they have a very valuable and a very necessary place in our journey. So you both epitomise that, and we thank you. Next month, we're going to be focusing on our Part 1 Networkology Foundation know-how. So get booking on those peer group sessions. They get booked up very, very fast. So yeah, we'll see you soon, and take very good care.